Are you looking to become a better real estate investor? Then hang on, because you're about to experience another episode of the world's most popular real estate podcast, the BiggerPockets Podcast. But before we get to this week's show, I wanted to invite you to become part of our community, BiggerPockets.com, the real estate investing social network. The membership is free, and you'll instantly gain access to networking opportunities, educational content, investor tools, and more. Sign up now and get a free copy of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, read by hundreds of thousands of budding entrepreneurs. Just click this link right here, or just head to BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 50.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with Brandon.
Hey, everyone. This is Brandon, co-host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with Josh.
Wait, are you making fun of me?
I would never make fun of you.
You son of a...
I don't make fun of people. I am respectful of all.
Yeah. That's not true. Yeah. That's not true.
Maybe not.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, happy holidays to everybody listening. And we got a really, really good show ahead. We've got a really fantastic interview, and we'll get into that in a second. But before we do, we've got our quick tip.
Yeah.
Today's quick tip: listen to the whole show, guys. If you're new, especially, listen to the entire show. We know that these things could be a bit long sometimes, but we definitely want to encourage you to make it all the way to the end, because there's definitely some amazing stuff. In particular, in this show, there's a lot of really juicy advice at the very end. So if you're the type who listens for 5 minutes and thinks that you got it all and you know it all, well, you certainly don't.
You don't.
And you're certainly missing out. So make it to the end, guys.
Everyone's like, that's a lame quick tip.
Yeah, it was a lame quick tip. And what was with that voice, man? You sounded like you were going to kill somebody.
I was adding emphasis to that.
Okay, you're not being Batman again, are you?
No, I'm not going to be Batman. Come on.
Okay.
Sheesh.
All right. Well, before we introduce our guest, I want to encourage you guys, as I do every week, to jump on the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show49 and come and ask our guest questions, or just let them know that you listen to the show. Our guests put a lot of time into just being here and giving you guys advice, and they love spending the time to answer your questions. They really do, and they get a lot out of it. So, jump in and let them know how you feel about the show. Otherwise, of course, if you guys have not left a review or rating on iTunes yet, I really want to encourage you to do so. We're at 524 reviews, and we'd love to see that number get to 1,000 by tomorrow. By tomorrow, 1,000. Let's double a year's worth of work by tomorrow.
By tomorrow, we're doing it. All right.
Yes. So jump on iTunes, let the world know what you think of the show. Leave an honest review there. We're not going to bribe you to do anything. That's not how we roll. But come and do it. All right. Leave us some feedback, and we appreciate it. With that, it's time for the show. This is the big show.
What?
I don't know. I used to watch wrestling back in the day, and there was like a guy named Big Show. And
that says a lot about you, Josh, that you used to watch wrestling back in the day, and it all makes sense now. It's all coming together.
Oh, come on, Brandon. You're telling me you did not watch Hulk Hogan in those yellow spandex back in the day?
I was like 4 years old.
Yeah. All right. So for today's show, we're going to sit down with a guy named Mike Simmons. Mike's a real estate investor from the great state of Michigan. He started flipping houses back in 2008 and has some really keen insight into the best ways to get started in any niche of real estate. Mike's also a really funny guy, so I think you guys are going to love the show. And as somebody in Michigan, we're going to have an interesting debate later on. So stay tuned. And with that, why don't we get the show going? Mike, welcome to the show, my friend. Good to have you.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Awesome. Good to have you. Let us begin at the beginning. What kind of investing do you do?
Begin at the beginning. It's a great
I am going to
place.
begin at the beginning. I
Thank
was
you.
born in a small town. No,
Maybe not that
so-
beginning.
no, I won't go. I'll go pretty far back, but I'll make it quick because it's kind of, to me, it's relevant how I got started even before I bought my first house.
Sure.
I was an adult working in the working world, and I was approaching my 30s, and I thought, I don't want to work the rest of my life. That's not really my goal to work, and I was kind of doing the math too, going, okay, I know what I make. I know what my bills are. I know how many kids I have. And at the end of the day, I'd have to live to be like 180 to really be able to retire. So I started looking online, and I thought, my first inclination was the stock market. Maybe day trading sounded cool.
Nice.
So I got online and started really researching the stocks and stock market and what the terminology was. And I found every time I got on there and started like trying to research stocks or just the stock market or how do you even go about this whole thing, I would always end up on like NFL.com or ESPN.com because what I found after, exactly. What I found after a few jaunts out into the real estate, the stock world is I hated it. It was boring. It was god awful. It was like reading insurance novels. It was the worst.
You're wrong, by the way. I
agree.
totally was.
No,
I was
agree.
I was a stock trader for a while, so I did it.
Yeah.
And fascinating, exciting, fast paced, crazy, and you'll lose your ASS
Yeah.
if you don't know what you're doing. But
You have to
But,
have a
uh,
boring personality to be a stock trader.
well,
Just kidding,
luckily
I
I
just
got
offended
bored
half
by
our-
it because I'm
Yeah.
sure I would have lost my ASS on it too. So yeah, it didn't excite me. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I tried. I wanted to get into it so bad. It seemed like a cool thing, but I just couldn't get into it. So, anyways, when you go online and you type into Google or at the time Yahoo or whatever I was on, and you type in investing, you will get stocks and stock trading and that kind of thing, but inevitably you'll also come across real estate investing. So as I was scrolling down and trying to look for a stock site that interests me, I came across real estate investing sites and real estate investing people out there that are online and pushing their wares and things like that. And it really piqued my interest. I realized that I just couldn't get enough of it. The more I read, the more interested I was. And it sort of built, early on it built that way. I developed a liking for it or a real interest in it. Now, the people that I was reading and things, a lot of times it was kind of salesman-y and, kind of bad that way. But, it at least planted the seed that I at least like this whole thing called real estate investing. And then, you move on from there and we can jump to maybe my, when I really got involved.
Well, and as much as like we like to make fun of the gurus and those who are selling their wares and all that, but I mean you are right. Like a lot of us are in the game because of them. So whether or not their tactics are terrible and their upsells are terrible, a lot of us are they're responsible for our future success. So there's something to say for that. Not that I'm saying that I love them, but Josh, what are your thoughts? That's what I thought. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they plant the seed, and that's really what it was. They planted the seed, and I really dodged a bullet because I talk to people, and I hear a lot of stories about people who, unfortunately spend thousands and thousands of dollars on kind of BS systems before they realize that they were taken, and then they move on and do the right thing. I didn't do that. I was far too cheap to spend that kind of money. So for me, it was just a lot of reading and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So your interest was piqued, and then what?
Then I did what a lot of people do, and what I really advise people not to do is I started reading, and then I thought flipping houses sounded cool, and then I thought buy and hold sounded cool, and then, oh my God, there's wholesaling, and what is the lease option? And I started just running toward every shiny object that I saw, and what I basically did was I just created this paralysis by analysis, and I started learning a little bit about everything, but I didn't really know much about any one way of doing it. So to answer your question, Josh, I sat on the sidelines for years, really. I sat there for probably 4 or 5 years before I really took the first real step into real estate. I just allowed myself to get too caught up in the reading and then analyzing different processes and models.
Gotcha. So and on that, I don't think the reading is bad. I don't think there's any fault in that. I think the issue comes in being, and this is going to come off as a negative on you, but it's not meant to be. It's on the indecisiveness, the inability to narrow down those options to one option and then focus exclusively on that option, work it, and then once you kind of figure it out and get your thing, get it going with that, then potentially moving to the next and to the next. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, it's totally fair. It took someone had to tell me to focus on one thing, forget about everything else, pick one that you think that you might like, and really, really apply yourself. Someone had to actually basically have an intervention and tell me I had to do this. Otherwise, I might still be just reading and looking at the shiny objects. I don't know. It seemed like, how do you focus on one thing? There's somebody making money with this and that, and this guy says this is, and the problem is everybody you talk to has their own opinion, right? So it's tough to focus if you're talking to all kinds of different people who are doing all kinds of different models. You get swayed, and they're very, some people are persuasive. They say, oh man, wholesaling is where it's at. Why would you flip a house? Why would you want to have, tenants? You need to wholesale, man. You buy the houses, you never have to do anything. And then the next guy goes, well, what are you talking about? If you flip it, you make all the money. Why would you wholesale it? Keep these houses and flip them. It isn't that big of a deal. And then of course other people go, that's not investing. You need to buy and hold for the long term. And I kept getting pulled in different directions because luckily I was in a mastermind, a real estate mastermind, like a local one, like one where you go to it. And there was a lot of really knowledgeable people doing some good stuff and really knew their thing. But every time I sat down and talked to the next person who really knew what they were talking about, they really knew what they were talking about in their specific way of doing it. And then the next, time I went, I would sit by some other guy who was really helpful and really great, but he was convinced his way was the best. And it was really tough for me to focus, Yeah.
And that's a problem that I'd say the vast majority of people who are probably listening to the show are dealing with. I'd say the vast majority of, quote, real estate investors, those guys who say, I'm an investor. I just read a book.
Yeah.
That it's something that a lot of people face. And it's good to hear that it's something you went through because, hopefully it gives people some hope that if you do narrow down your focus and start working at that one thing, then you can find your way.
One thing in the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing that we put out like a year ago, one of the things we talk about in there is how in real estate there's a whole lot of different niches and then there's a whole lot of different strategies you can use within those. So altogether, when you combine them all together, there's, like you said, flipping, wholesaling, buy and hold, whatever, lease options, subject to. And I mean, these are niches and strategies that when you combine them, there's like hundreds of ways to make this work. And every one of those, you can find somebody on BiggerPockets who's succeeding doing it. And so again, it's shiny object, exactly like you said.
Hey, really quick, what was that? It was called the what, Brandon? The Ultimate
The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing at biggerpockets.com/UBG.
Okay.
Look at that.
There you go.
Yeah, it is sites like BiggerPockets that actually is a tremendous tool, tremendous resource, but also a source of so much good information. You could literally read for days and never get out there. At some point, you have to, I hate to say it, you have to click off. You have to hit that little X at the top. All right, I take it back. Just keep reading bigger.
No, get out. You're right. Get out.
Yeah, you have to get out there, and that's what I wasn't doing. At the time, your website wasn't around, but I was, on different forums, and boy, you can find a lot of really bad information too. That's, part of the problem. You start going down the wrong road every once in a while, and it takes you some time and talking to people to figure out, you're kind of going down a path that isn't really going to be successful. So yeah, basically I did that. I learned a ton, but the best way to learn is to go out there and do it. I would venture to guess anybody you talk to in real estate who's successful will say they didn't really know anything until they did their first couple of deals, and you learn a ton by getting out there and doing it. And that's how I've learned most of what I've learned. I'm not a super big book reader. I don't devour books on real estate, but I get out there and do it, and you just learn a ton that way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your first deal. How did that first deal come about? What was it?
Okay. Well, the first house, I'm going to talk about the first house I ever got under contract first. It wasn't my first deal, but it's important because I started investing in real estate, or I at least made the decision that I was going to pull the trigger and really do it in 2008, right? It's like one of the worst times in the world because house prices were plummeting. And so I put an offer in on a house. I got the courage up to put an offer in on a house. And I got the money from a very local small bank, very, very small local bank. And they approved me. It was all set up. We had a contract. We were waiting for closing, and the bank went out of business. Like
Ooh,
literally was gone
nice.
one day. Yeah. So we put down.
Did they have all the
$1,000.
stickers on the door saying this has been shut down by the feds?
Yeah, foreclosed. Yeah, actually, I looked in and I bought it because it was a good deal. No, yeah, no, they went out of business, and I couldn't find anyone else to fund the deal in time. And I had put $1,000 earnest money down, and long story short, I lost it. And I thought, oh my God, it's the end of the world. I just lost $1,000, my first, adventure out into real estate, and I just lost a ton of money. And the funny thing is 4 months later, I bought a house one street over for half the price that I was going to pay for that house. So you can imagine when I finished rehab, by the way, it was going to be a fix and flip. When I would have finished fixing it up and try to flip it, you can imagine what the house prices would have been like. I would have lost way more than $1,000. I mean, it would have been a disaster. Yeah. So luckily I didn't get that first one. Like I said, a street over, a few months later, I bought my first deal. We used traditional mortgage financing. We went to a bank, got a mortgage, and then we had to put the down payment down, obviously, and then we used our personal funds, my wife and I, to do all of the rehab. So we basically took all of our chips and symbolically pushed them to the middle of the table and said, we are all in. Here's all our money. We're going to try this, and we think we can do it. And we learned a lot, and I'd be happy to tell you the things we did right and wrong there. But at the end of the day, we made money, and it was really, really good. It was one of the best deals we did for quite a while, actually.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah.
What'd you do? Well, let's hear what you did right, and then I could pick on you what you did wrong.
Okay. Well, what we did right was we didn't over rehab it, right? We didn't go in and do what some new investors do, and they think, if I were living here, I would want granite, and I would want expensive fixtures, and I would want, they overdo it for the area that they're in, and then they realize they can't make money because they just spent way too much on rehab. Now, it was our money, and it was all of our money, and there was a very definite end to that pile. There was a number that we were going to stop rehabbing no matter what. Yeah. So we had to budget within that. And we were smart enough, and we had enough context to know that we should go to open houses around the neighborhoods and in that community, look at the other houses, find out what our competition is basically, and then make sure we're a little bit better than that, at least a little bit better than that, but not light years better than that, just better than that. So whenever someone goes to look at our house, and they're going to go look at other houses that day too, they're going to look, and and the houses that we bought, that one in particular was like a 3-1 brick with a basement and a garage. It was a decent little house, good price. But when people go look at other houses like that or in the neighborhood, they're going to see 1950s kitchen. They're going to see, carpet covering up hardwood, this nasty carpet. So that was our competition, and we knew that's what we had to beat. So it was pretty easy in that neighborhood. Just put in new cabinets. They didn't have to be the best cabinets in the world. As a matter of fact, I think we went to Home Depot and got off-the-shelf cabinets, but they were new, and it made the house better than every other house in the neighborhood. We refinished the hardwood floors, paint. I mean, it was really a basic rehab, but it worked out really, really well for us because we didn't go overboard.
Did you do the work yourself or hire it out with a contractor?
We hired a contractor. Okay, so we want to get into what we did wrong now. We're
hired a contractor. What did we do wrong?
Yeah. Oh my God, what didn't we do wrong? So the first thing I did wrong was I went on Craigslist and I said, looking for a contractor to renovate a house, gave him my phone number, and guess what happened? My phone blew up. Pretty soon my voicemail was locked up, and it was a mess. I was answering calls from all these guys that wanted to go right then and look at it. So I set up appointments to talk to 6 different contractors, and I set them up so that I would have an hour with each one and then a half an hour buffer in between in case it went a little long, right? So you can do the math. I was there forever, right? So I thought the first contractor would come in, I'd talk to him for an hour, little buffer in case I had to go to the bathroom or go get something to drink or whatever. Then the next, get appointments with professionals, right? So I was there
that's the first problem.
I was there for like 10 hours. I talked to 2 contractors. The rest of them were no-shows. I was furious, and I said, I am never, ever, ever, ever going to do this again. So here's one little tip for you, and this, maybe people do this, but I had to learn the hard way. I do when I'm looking for a new contractor. I have one now that I love, but when I need a new one, I will make an appointment with 6 contractors in 1 hour, and they all show up at the same time. I walk every one of them through one time, And if some don't show, who cares? If at least one person's there, it's worth my time. And that way they see that there is, there is competition. There's a sense of competition there, that they are bidding against other people that are real. And, and that's how we found some really good contractors along the way. But some people have said it's rude. Don't do that. It's rude just for me to sit there for 10 hours too.
Yeah. So I was going to ask about that. I mean, I don't think it's rude. I think, I think it's just a matter of, using best use of your time. I'm curious if you've experienced a situation where these guys kind of, there's a lot of machismo in that space, right? So was there any kind of beef? Was there any battles between these guys ever, or?
No, I haven't had any problems. I mean, I show up first, obviously, and I've got everything organized. I make a bunch of different copies of the work order or the scope of work. I hand it out, and I just lead it through. I lead them through, and when they're done, I basically say, that's it. Please give me your, send your quote to me in the next couple of days or whatever. So I don't give them a lot. They're not standing around drinking coffee and eating donuts and talking, or otherwise there would be problems. And that's something I found going back to I only really have like one or two things I did right. I have a lot of things I did wrong on my first house, so we're going to spend more time there. So anyway, I didn't do that in the first one, right? I stayed there for 10 hours. I found a contractor, and the way I picked my contractor was he was about my age. He seemed like a pretty cool guy, somebody I could get along with, someone I would probably, enjoy talking to. I thought that was the way I should go. I'm going to pick someone kind of like me, someone I kind of like, and he seemed like a good dude.
This is for a book club or for your
contract? I know, exactly. No, I was looking for friends at the time. Turns out, worst contractor ever. I mean, the work he did was all right. It wasn't great. At the end of the day, he didn't pay the electrician her $1,000. It was an electrician company. He didn't pay him their $1,000 that for the work they did. Of course, I paid him for that. And believe it or not, this is going to shock you, so hopefully everyone's sitting down and ready and rested for this. He didn't answer my calls when I tried to find out what happened with the contractor and why he didn't pay them. So I feel bad to this day. It makes me cry a little bit. Yeah, he didn't call me back. I couldn't get a hold. He fell off the face of the earth, whatever. So I called the contractor and said, listen, this is what happened. I already paid for the work. And their response was, as it well should be, that's fine, but we didn't get paid. And we need to get paid. And our only recourse now is to put a lien against your house. And you're not going to sell it unless you pay us. And I was like, good Lord, this is my first house. I'm like, come on. All right, maybe I can figure out a deal. So I talked to the person, and they agreed to cut it down to $600 from $1,000.
Oh, that was really nice.
Really nice.
Didn't have to do that, by the way.
Did not have to do that. So I'm going to chalk it up to negotiating skills, and we'll put that in the area of things I did well, since I feel like there's not enough in that column. But yeah, I talked to them, and they agreed to cut it down. So I just cut my losses, paid them, and moved on.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's definitely something to learn. Now, how would somebody go about avoiding that? Right. So, you're paying a GC, and there's subcontractors underneath that they're responsible for paying. And of course, if they don't, you're on the line, which if you don't know that, guys who are listening, that's the way the world works. So how do we protect ourselves from these guys not paying their subcontractors?
It's pretty simple. It's called a release of lien, and you make your general contractor sign it, and all of the subcontractors need to sign this release of lien, basically saying that they are not going to put a lien against your house for non-payment as long as you pay. And obviously you pay with checks, don't pay with cash. Don't do some of those things that people do where they get burned. Make sure it's all above board. I've had contractors say, oh, can you pay me in cash? And, whatever reason, they have a ton of reasons. And I just say, I'm really sorry. I can't do it that way. Everything has to be with a company check. We're all going to sign a release of lien. And I have my contractor sign, like, basically an agreement before they get started about how the work's going to be done. And it spells out everything, the scope of work, how they're going to pay their subcontractors, how the release of funds are going to go, and that kind of thing. So you do it with contracts, unfortunately, or paperwork of some kind that stipulates certain things. And a release of lien is the thing that we learned on our first flip there that you have to do. Otherwise, people can come back and say you didn't pay them, and that's just the way it is.
Gotcha. All right. So what else did you do wrong?
Well, you asked me. Yeah, I know. There's more. Believe me, there's more. Well, you asked me who did the work, right? So I'm going to say this. I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a builder, a finished carpenter, or anything like that. We didn't do the bulk of the work, but we did think that we could do certain things that were like manual labor that didn't require a ton of skill. Like we thought it'd be a good idea to scrape the paint on the back of the house and repaint ourselves. That seemed like a good way to save, $200 or whatever
Sounds like
it
a
was.
good Sunday activity with the family.
Yeah, sounds like my wife and I went out there with putty knives, and I scraped about a 1 by 3 foot area and was cussing and saying this is ridiculous. How much did we save again? What exactly was this going to cost us? And I think we actually didn't even finish. We just said, you know what, we'll just pay him to do this. This is insane. It's taking all day and it's ridiculous. The other thing was there was a basement, like I said, and we thought we can paint a basement, no big deal. And we did. It wasn't the end of the world, but it took us way longer than it would have taken the contractor. We held him up a little bit because we weren't done with certain things, and just little things like that we thought, we're saving a 200 here, 100 there, 300 there. But what really you do is you're just adding so much time to the job that doesn't have to be there. And, the idea when you're fixing and flipping houses is to turn them as quickly as possible. Holding on to them for 6 months to work on them isn't the way to go. And we were going into the Christmas season too. So had we known more, we would have been even more concerned about getting done with the job faster, because we ended up selling the house like December 10th or something. It was horrible, and we held it for too long, and made all those mistakes. We talked. Okay, so the next mistake. I'm just running through them now because you made me realize
I'm such a screw up.
I know, this is horrible. This is good stuff though. People need to know. I mean, it's things that a lot of people do. So we found a realtor. I don't even remember how we found this realtor. She might have been recommended to us, and I said, I want to sell the house and I want to sell it quickly. What do you think is a good? And by the way, I didn't do my after repair value too much. Not like I should have, at least. I kind of got lucky a little bit, but I should have known what the house was going to be worth really very well myself before I got too far into this. But I trusted her and said, what do you think it's going to be worth? What should we put it on the market for? And she gave me a price. And I said, all right, I don't want to hang on to this forever though. So make sure we're not being too, aggressive with this price. And no, I think we can get it. Well, long story short, took us like 4 months to sell it. She priced it so high, it was a complete joke. I mean, she was trying to make a big commission, I guess, and maybe trying to do us a favor by making us a lot of money. But you know how it goes. If you overprice the house and then it sits there for a month, now you've got a house that's sitting there for a month and nobody knows why it's not selling, and they have to assume something's wrong with it. And you go down that road, and that's kind of, we were chasing our tail the entire time. We would drop it by 5,000 and then nothing, and then we drop it. And then you got a house that keeps dropping in price every other week, and then that creates a stigma. And it was just kind of a bad deal from that point of view. But we still, I live in Michigan, so the house we bought for $40,000.
You live where?
In the great state of Michigan.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Continue where you're going. We're going to have to move on in a second.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in Michigan, you can buy a house for $40,000. At least in 08, you could.
Buy for $40,000, my friend.
I said Michigan, by the way. I'm being state specific, not city specific. I don't know what city you're talking about, by the way. So we bought it for $40,000. We put like 15 into it, sold it for like 85, and we made 15,000. It was a good deal for us. It was a good first deal. We didn't have any partners, so that was good, right? We weren't splitting it with anybody. And even with the high price point to begin with and what we ended up getting for it, we did all right. It was fine. We just should have priced it lower. We probably could have made more if we would have not priced it quite so high to begin with.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's like gives bad flashbacks to my early flipping days.
Yeah, I think every flipper's had that experience. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's stop for a second here. Hold on. So you said you're from Michigan, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and Michigan's a great state. I love Michigan. Never been there. Love the state.
Oh, this is so condescending. What do you love about it, Josh?
There's nothing, the people are great. The landscape is gorgeous. The industry that it. Wait, hold on. So
what do you drive, Josh? What do you drive?
I drive all Japanese, baby.
Okay, all right. Then I don't have a point. Go ahead.
I'm a Honda Toyota man. So if American cars were better, for crying out loud. Okay, I just lost a third of my audience.
Yep.
Okay, so are you in what is it? Detroit. Are you in Detroit?
I'm not in Detroit.
Oh man.
I'm not in Detroit.
Do you invest in Detroit?
Yeah, we can go there too. I have invested in
we're
Detroit.
going there.
I have some stories for. I have some Detroit stories for you.
Okay, so this is. Let's just do a segue here. This is show 49 of the Bigger Pockets podcast, and for about 48 of the previous shows, in some way, shape, or form, I have implied or directly bagged on the great city of Detroit.
The word is mock. You've mocked.
I haven't mocked. I have not mocked it.
I have listened to a ton of your shows, right? You crowbar in shots at Detroit, even when there's nothing to be said about it.
So
you'll talk to people and go, "Oh, where are you from? Chicago? Isn't that near Michigan? Isn't that where Detroit is?"
So let's get to this. Let's get to this whole discussion, because I think it's a discussion that needs to be had, and we'll keep it really brief, and then we'll move on. Just because I get so much grief from people for my little crowbar.
I'm gonna represent Detroit now. Here we go.
Do it. All right. Here's the deal. So people are always out there saying, you can find these. Yeah. Okay. Let me stop and circle back. My issue with Detroit is this. The city, the industry, everything's kind of going the wrong direction, has been for a long, long, long time. They want to raise, I don't know, how many properties do they want to raise? Thousands and thousands of properties that they're trying to just like literally destroy, because the economy and everything else there's such a problem. My issue is people are out there trying to get unsuspecting, unknowing real estate investors, quote unquote, to come in and buy property in Detroit. And, it really concerns me. And they is obviously a big they. It can mean one of lots of different folks, but tends to be some of the unseemly folk who are doing it. And, you can buy a $1 property. You could buy a $50, $1,000, a $5,000 property. And, if you could get the rents, and if you can actually get somebody to live there, certainly you can make some money. But, it scares the crap out of me that people who aren't aware think, oh, I could buy a super cheap property. Cool. Well, cheap doesn't mean, it's cheap. Inexpensive doesn't mean cheap. So that's my biggest thing with Detroit. And Detroit really acts as a representation of all those other cities around the Rust Belt, where, the cities are kind of going in the wrong direction, and where people are trying to get what I think is a lot of suckers in to buy property that are potentially going to be big fat losers in the long run. So that's my take, and it's really out of a worry for folks more than anything else. I have nothing against Detroit. I'll say it now. I really don't.
Wait a minute. How are you going to take back everything you said?
I haven't said squat.
No.
You know what? Mike, click. Oh, we just lost Mike. Sorry, everybody. Next guest.
No. Okay. All right. Let me address that. All right. So in real estate, there's a lot of people, like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of people that would purposely lead you astray. Forget Detroit for a minute, just in real estate in general, right? Absolutely. Buy my course, $5,000, zero value in it. Sure. It's all fluff. It's garbage. So then you turn and say, real estate investing is for schmucks and it's for swindlers, and I'm not going to invest in real estate. It's no good. Detroit is the same way. Detroit has really bad areas that you should never forget about investing or buying a house. You should never drive through them. They're just not areas that are safe to be in. There are areas in Detroit that are not bad. And I know that's going to get a chuckle, but I'm telling you, I did invest in Detroit for a very short period of time, had an idea. It didn't work out so well, and I'll tell you why.
Chuckle.
It didn't work out so well. It didn't work out so well for a lot of the reasons why you're talking about.
Was the idea really quick? Because I'm going to predict your idea.
Here we go.
The idea was you're going to buy an entire block, and you're going to go in there and clean up that whole block, because you could buy the block for like, $5,000-$10,000, and you'll have the clean, safe block, and there's good comps, and everybody's happy and safe, right?
No, that I'm not that ambitious. I'm
not.
I
had that idea once.
No,
idea.
No, here's the thing with Detroit, and I suspect it's a lot like this with a lot of big cities. I mean, Detroit gets a bad rap, and a lot of it is deserved, and some of it's not. There are good areas of Detroit. There really are. To be general, the west side, the northwest side, there's some very nice neighborhoods. I drove through them for a year. I drove through them and looked at houses, and they really were nice. Now, there's areas of Detroit that are really, really bad. And the problem with it is, you're right. I could go and buy a house for $1, for $1,000, for $5,000, and try to pawn that off on somebody for $10,000 and move on. And there are people who are doing that every single day. There really are. Yep. There are areas of Detroit where you can buy a house. The problem is, if you're buying it for $5,000, you can go ahead and make the logical leap that in assumption that it's a bad area. It probably is. And if you're buying a house for $5,000 and you don't think it's a bad area, go visit the house at night and look around and see what's happening, right? If there's a lot of bad stuff happening, then you know you bought a bad house. But there are houses in area. There are areas of Detroit that are family, blue-collar areas where people are investing and they're doing all right. I know people who buy and sell houses in Detroit all the time. Sure. The problem is, I'm not from Detroit. That was my number one mistake. I don't know the areas. Now, I partnered with a guy who is from Detroit and did know the areas, but still, he grew up there. He doesn't live there now. He hasn't lived there in 15 years. He still doesn't know enough about it. And the bottom line is, we had a lot of problems, right? The problems that you would associate with Detroit. We were in decent areas, but it is what it is. It's a unique area to try to invest, and it takes a certain kind of investor. Like I said, I know people who do invest in Detroit, and they are successful, and they're not bad guys. They're not doing the wrong thing. But they understand the city. They understand how to rehab a house. They understand what you have to do during a rehab. You have to watch the house. You can't in Detroit. You don't leave houses alone for a week at a time and expect nothing to happen. Yeah. Something will happen. But the bottom line is too, there are people who want to live in Detroit, and there's people who can't afford to spend $100,000 on a house. And you're not doing anything wrong. They want to live in Detroit. They're looking for a nice neighborhood with a house that is in good repair and is safe for their family. And if you can provide that, great. If you're selling them a house that's in a cracked neighborhood and they have little kids and you're selling to them for way more than you should, yeah, you're a bad guy. Yeah. But that's not all that happens there.
And I think that's a good point. All joking aside, people legitimately want to live in Detroit. People either because they have to, or because they want to. And it is unfortunate. And for me, it's really more. I'm a big political guy, and I think it's a big political commentary on kind of the state of the state, so to speak. And it really is saddening to me more than anything to see. One of our greatest cities in the country, and frankly, one of the greatest cities in the history of the world in terms of industry, see such an utter and horrifying collapse. And, I think investors can play a very important role in Detroit. But I don't think it's for the newbie. I think, investing in an area like that is really for folks who have what you said, have an experience level, have a really deep understanding of the city, who get, the demographic trends, who understand, that you can't mess around. Like you said, I mean, if somebody new coming in goes to flip a house, has all their materials locked away in there, and they come back, it's gone. I mean, there are a lot of problems that Detroit has, and it's not only in Detroit, but, I think people just need to be cautious, and I think it's a place for the experienced investor to focus versus newbies.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to know what you're doing. It's a very specialized market. I mean, I've had break-ins of houses that I'm flipping in the suburbs, in the nice suburbs. It happens.
Sure.
It's just, it might be a little more frequent in Detroit. That's all. Yeah. I had someone break into a house, actually, just quick story. I had someone break in. We did a rehab, very nice rehab, completely done. The next day I went there to go look around and the keys and everything. I had the keys not working in the door. What's the problem? Look in. Somebody's clearly has been in there. That I call my contractor. He goes, those aren't even those are not the locks I put on the door yesterday. They're different. Somebody came in, took off the locks, rekeyed it, put a new lock on, moved in. I called a lawyer and said, okay, so here's the deal. I've never experienced this before, but here's what happened. He said, yep, I know what you're talking about. You have to evict them. I said, what do you mean I have to evict them? They moved in, they broke into my house and changed the locks. And they're like, no, you have to evict them. I mean, that's just the process. And it took me 90 days to get them out. And
So I had the same thing happen in St. Louis. I had evicted somebody from a unit in a building. They had broken into the adjacent unit, changed the locks, and I had to evict them out of that unit thereafter. So that's one of the reasons why I tell people, really, especially in lower income areas, you've got to be careful, because a lot of that stuff happens, and it's unfortunate. But
why am I paying a mortgage? There's like vacant houses in my neighborhood.
You know what? I mean, like I said, I think this happens in other cities. I don't have experience in other cities, but in Detroit, there are people who just go from house to house to house to house, and they get evicted. They break into another house. Unfortunately, like Josh was saying, there's a lot of houses that need to be torn down.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of just bad areas where the houses are abandoned because the neighborhoods are so out of whack that nobody wants to live there. So people just break in and that's it. They live there for 3 or 4 months, and they just do that every 3 or 4 months. They move around, and that's how they live.
Well, hopefully somebody listening to the show is somehow related to the folks in power over there, and maybe they learn a thing or two about how screwed up things are, and can start doing that. I know there's a lot of forward thinking folks in there now, and I think they're trying to drive a lot of industry, and I think there's a lot of really exciting looking plans, to be honest. I mean, I've seen some really cool stuff where they're really trying to turn Detroit into this very, very progressive green city, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a bloody fortune to do. Maybe if we, well, I'm not going to get into my politics.
Yeah, I definitely can't defend the city itself and the decisions that have been made over the years. I can't. It's tough. I grew up about an hour south of Detroit, and I now live a half an hour north of Detroit. And when I was growing up, nobody went to Detroit. There was nothing there to go do. Nobody wanted to be there. We went. I lived on the border of Ohio and Michigan. We'd go to Toledo. That was where everybody went. And now that I'm an adult and I'm living north of Detroit, we go down there for Tigers games, baseball games, and Lions games. And the area around those stadiums is actually pretty nice. You can really have a nice day and enjoy yourself, good restaurants, but you can't venture too far out. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're flipping in kind of the outskirts of Detroit, right? That's kind of where what your strategy and location is now?
Yeah, technically it's called Metro Detroit in this area. So when someone says I live in Metro Detroit, I real estate invest in Metro Detroit, what they're saying is the suburbs around Detroit, basically.
Okay. All right, and those different. So why don't we jump back into that if you guys are done with your little debate?
No, and really quick.
It's tough to defend, but yeah, go ahead.
And listen. I mean, I'm glad to have somebody on the show who's from there, and because I really do think it's important that we talk about it. It is an important city in this country, and I think it is reflective of other cities potentially as well. And even though I bag on it, I do so because it really is representational of other stuff. So I'm glad to hear that all my bagging is correct.
Oh man, that's how we just wrapped it up.
It's my show, son.
I have to go outside, Josh. I have to travel around. All right.
Okay, so Mike Simmons is a big fan of Detroit.
Yeah.
Don't target him, guys.
Come on, the Tigers are great.
Wow. All right. Well, hey, let's go back to your deals. That you're flipping primarily, correct? I mean that's your
I have one rental. I got it, kind of gun to my head kind of a thing. I got remarried and it was a house that I owned. I couldn't sell it because it was completely underwater, and I have tenants, and I basically took the first tenant that came to me with the money, and it was just like everything that you can do wrong on a rental I've done too. So
nice.
Now, what I didn't realize was until really not that long ago is I got someone in there and they're covering the mortgage and everything, and I always thought this is the worst situation. I have bad tenant. I'm not charging enough. It's the horrible, like numbers wise, it's horrible. I'm making $300 a month on this rental. It's actually not a bad rental if you look at it that way. It's just I didn't really screen the tenant too well. So getting that money each month, I'm earning every bit of that money. So
nice. And
my primarily flip, yes.
And listen, you're not alone in that either, because I think the reason BiggerPockets exists today is because I am you. I made every friggin' mistake in the book, and then I made it again, and then I made 20 others. And I don't want other people to go through that, and that's why the show's around, and that's why the site's around, and so don't feel bad. A lot of people go through it, and we all kind of suck it up, and either we lick our wounds or we get the hell out.
Yep, that's how we learn. So I've learned a lot, obviously.
Yeah. So where are you finding your deals? Is this marketing, MLS? What are you doing?
It's primarily MLS. I do, I do have bird dogs basically who are out there. They're not out there every day. There's a lot of people that are in real estate that know what I do, and I created a network of people that kind of throw deals at me here and there when they see something comes up, or they can't handle it for whatever reason, don't have the funds, don't have the time, they'll push it my way. But honestly, the vast majority of the deals that I get are through the MLS. I work with a realtor, one specific realtor who really knows my business, knows me. We have a high level of trust in each other. And he sort of gets it. So he pushes a lot of things my direction and lets me look, because he knows I'll look at him immediately and I'll make an offer on the spot if it's a good deal. So, we work very well that way, and I do use him pretty much exclusively.
Okay. So say that again, because I think that's something that people really need to be paying attention on. In order, I think, to be taken seriously, and in order for other professional real estate investors to really consider you want to be able to, and you have to be able to act quickly. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's just no way around it, especially if you're using the MLS to find houses. You have to act very, very quickly, because if it's a good deal, there's a lot of other people looking at it. And like I said, in Michigan, house prices aren't what they are in California and some of these other states. So a lot more people have gotten into, quote, real estate investing because they had an extra $40,000 sitting around and think they can do it. So you have a lot of people making a lot of offers. And if you're not quick and you're not the first one there, a lot of times you just miss out. So yeah, being fast is key.
And that creates some problems too, in that, for a new investor, somebody who's just getting started, the key is to go fast, but the key is also not to screw up and do your numbers wrong. So how do you reconcile that for a new investor? What kind of advice can you offer for somebody? How do they do it quick without screwing up? They don't have time to go, post it on the BiggerPockets forums, debate it for a couple of days. How do you do that?
I guess my number one advice for someone in that situation would be find a mentor. Find someone who's doing it and can give you some advice and show you how to. Working the numbers really isn't that hard. It doesn't take that long if you know what you're doing. So it's not like I go into houses and I pull out a spreadsheet and I have to do these advanced calculations. It's pretty quick, but you need to find a mentor. Find someone who can kind of shortcut some of the mistakes that you're going to make right off the bat, the real easy ones, and work with them, and maybe just shadow them for one or two deals and just watch, observe, maybe help if you can. But I would say don't try to, right out of the box, don't try to do it all by yourself without talking to anybody and think you're going to figure it out. You will totally screw it up.
And by mentor, you mean find a successful real estate investor in your area who's willing to take you under their wing versus spending $10, $20, $30, $50,000 for a mentor.
Yeah, exactly. And really, they don't even have to do a lot. There's a real estate investing club in most cities. So find one that's close to you. Go there, spend it, go to a couple meetings, try to, identify, talk to people, obviously network, identify some of the people who are the players in your area, and maybe just take them out for lunch and just ask them some questions and ask them some of the things that you need to be aware of and what are the pitfalls or what are the things that I'm going to do wrong. These guys know exactly what you need to do when you're first starting out. They know how to calculate the numbers. They can show you how to calculate the numbers. Like I said, it doesn't have to be rocket science. And I know I've listened to people on your show who are engineers and things, and they have very sophisticated algorithms for how they're going to buy houses. And that's great. But when you're just buying one or two, or your first one, you really don't have to make it that much of a science, but there's numbers that you have to be aware of. After repair value being huge, that's huge. You need to know what it costs to, if you're going to do a flip, you need to know what it costs to rehab the house, right? So if you know what you can sell it for and you know what it's going to cost to rehab it, and you can calculate a couple of other things like the realtor's commission and maybe some holding cost, and then you know what you have to pay for it if you want to get a certain profit. So they can work these basic numbers through, but I think you need to sit with someone who's done it and just pick their brain. That would be the number one thing.
That's great advice. Great advice. So while we're talking, my ADD getting the most of me, unfortunately, and I decided to go look up some information, and I've got to just digress for a second here. And
oh boy.
And no, you're going to be really pleased about this. All right. So I found a really cool article in Business Insider, and hopefully we'll point to it in the show notes. It's all about things going right for Detroit. And I just wanted to kind of make sure everybody knows that I'm equal opportunity here. The car business is booming. Housing prices are up year over year, 19% as of March of this year. Housing starts have seen gains 11 of the past 13 quarters. Payrolls haven't seen a negative month since April 2010. Manufacturing growth has outpaced national average every month since March 2010. Local household finances have improved 11 of the past 13 quarters. City saw a 68% increase in hotel night stays from 2012 to 2013, and on and on and on. There's actually a lot of positive things happening right now. So
that place sounds like a utopia.
that sounds awesome. I love it.
I'm moving
love it.
right now.
Yeah. Anyway,
No,
so
it's true. Things are on the upswing. I know because I buy and sell houses, so I do realize that the house prices are going up and the industry is picking up, and there's definitely a lot of good things. I'm not going to say that Detroit's the greatest place to invest. Matter of fact, the city is a very, very, very difficult place to invest if you don't know what you're doing. But Metro Detroit, or those of us who are in the suburbs around Detroit, I mean, it's probably like most other suburbs around the country. It's just, nice neighborhoods and good places to invest.
yeah,
That's cool.
Sorry to jump into that, but I just
No, that's good.
I felt really bad. You made me feel kind of evil. So
No, don't feel evil.
yeah.
Nice.
Well, so let's kind of move forward really quick through a couple other things. Can you potentially walk us through a typical flip? How are you paying for it? How much are you spending on rehab? What are you selling it for? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, here in Michigan, I mean, I always imagine people listening in other states, and I know you're in Denver, right, Josh, or Colorado? At least, okay.
Yeah, I've lived everywhere though, except
okay.
Detroit.
I don't know what the housing market's like there. That's it. I'm going to get you a little place here. I'm just going to spend $5,000.
Yes,
and I'm going to get you a place right near downtown. And I'm going to let you spend a week there.
As long as you buy me a $5,000 matching gun to go with it, we're good.
Yeah. So you can buy real estate relatively inexpensively here. So our typical buy-in in my market that I work is it started off, like I said, around $40,000 when I first started investing. It's probably closer to $50,000 now. What we have to spend to buy a house. We're spending
for the whole house, or is that for the lot, or is that for like just the bathroom, or is that the entire house?
That is the entire house. Yeah, great deal, huh?
No, that's not bad.
Yeah. So 40, I don't know, like 50,000 buy-in. Now, the houses that I'm buying are like a 3-1, 3-2 maybe, brick ranch, 1,000 square foot garage and basement. I mean, pretty straightforward. So 50,000 buy-in. We're going to spend 15 to 20, probably closer to 20 on the rehab, and sell it for usually around 110, 115, somewhere in there.
Not bad.
That's a pretty typical deal. The way that I financed my deal, the first deal I did, like I said, we got a mortgage and we went all in with the savings and paid for everything ourselves. What we did right, in the right column, I forgot, I didn't finish that column. It just occurred to me what I did right, and I didn't mention it. So one thing we did really, really well was once we had that first house going, we hadn't even closed on it yet, but we sort of had an idea that we were going to make money. We thought it was going to go all right. We started going to these real estate groups and these clubs and our mastermind that we were in and just talking to everyone, telling everyone what we were doing. We started a Facebook. At the time, they were called fan pages. I think they're business pages now. But we started one of those and got on there and started posting video, posting pictures, talking about what we were doing, and just putting ourselves out there as much as we could, anywhere we could. And based off that networking and putting ourselves out there and putting videos up and doing tours of the house that we had renovated, like before and after type stuff, we had people start approaching us and saying, hey, we like what you're doing. You guys seem like great people. It looks like you did a good job. We have a little money. We'd like to invest. How do we get this going? And we sort of felt our way through the process and made some mistakes. We did a few without any contracts at all. Just here's, $80,000.
Wow.
Let me know what you make. And then we started getting a little bit more professional.
The phone numbers of those folks who blindly gave you $80,000.
Yeah. Well, luckily we're honest people and it all went well. But, then we started getting a little more professional. And when we found a house and got under contract, we would actually create basically an investment portfolio for the house where we'd show them pictures. We would go through the list of what we were going to do to it, show them the comps for the after repair values. And we kind of created basically a little kit for each house that we did that we could present to investors and show them what we were going to do, just a little bit more professional. But that's basically how it started, just networking and talking. And then, the word got around and we started getting asked to talk at these local real estate clubs and get up on stage and speak. And then, as soon as you do that, you get a little bit of, extra credibility and more people would approach us. And pretty soon at the time, we weren't doing very much. We were getting more money than we could use. We kind of, unfortunately, we had money sitting on the sidelines that we couldn't use it all.
Yeah, well, that's an awesome tip too. Is just by getting out there and telling people what you're doing. I mean, I say that a lot. Like, just tell everyone what you're doing. Talk about your business all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be annoying, but yeah. And people, if you're doing a good job, people are going to be attracted to that. People are attracted to success.
Hey, I'm Brandon from BiggerPockets.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And the thing is I'm not a real network guy. Like, I don't love going to things and talking to people I don't know. And it felt kind of braggy at first. But if you do just get out there and start talking to people, I mean, I know people that do way more than I do in real estate. I mean, they're just killing it, and nobody knows about them. And their number one complaint is, I can't find enough money to do deals. But if people knew how good they were at what they were doing and how much money they were making and how many houses they're flipping and what a great professional job they're doing, people would trip over themselves to get to them, to try to get on board and be part of that. Yeah. But they don't like networking. They just kind of do everything in a bubble, and they're doing great. They're killing it, but nobody knows.
Brandon and I have a lot of discussions about real estate investors and every day. And one of the things that we really end up always back on is, there's a lot of real estate investors who think everything's good, and for them it probably is. But he and I both argue that every single investor has wants and needs of some kind. We've all got some kind of needs. If you're going to be a successful investor in real estate, no matter what, at some point in time, you're probably going to end up needing more funds to help you grow and continue to grow your business. And so, my quick plug is, we've got the BiggerPockets marketplace. It's biggerpockets.com/marketplace. And, just post your needs and wants. I mean, if you're a successful investor and you're killing it and doing great things, show people, show them in our success stories area. Let them know that, because the more you do that, and we'll link to this stuff, we'll link to the success stories in the show notes, and we'll link to the marketplace, but the more you can demonstrate to other people that you are successful, that you're doing a good job, the more attracted other people are going to be to you. So, it's not a matter of bragging. It's a matter of, this is how you build a business, by telling people that you're doing well. They don't know otherwise. So do it and make sure to put it out there, because when you put it out there, it circles back.
Now, with that though, how do you do that if you're just starting out? A lot of our listeners are just starting out. How do you brag about or talk about or whatever? How do you build up that reputation when you have no reputation?
Don't lie.
Yeah. What we did is we went to our local real estate investing clubs, and you know what? There's a lot of people there who are just talking about real estate, and they show up every month, and it seems like they're doing stuff, but they're really not. They're just talking about it, and they just like the environment, and they never really get out there and do anything. But there are a lot of people, or some people, I should say, not a lot, but there are some people at those clubs that are really doing great things. And at least in my area, investors show up to those clubs. People who want to be in real estate maybe don't have the time or the inclination or the knowledge to actually go out and do it, but they have money, and they want to hook up with people who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. And I'm telling you, that's how I have found most of my private money, is just doing exactly that. And I know people who have had great success. They just bump into a guy and they start talking, and it turns out this guy's got money and he really wants to invest, and he likes what you're doing. But if you never go to these things, if you never network, if you never talk, if you never discuss what you're out there doing, they don't come to your door and look for you. You have to go out there and make yourself available.
Yeah, that's true. So I have one more question kind of involving this, the raising money thing. This is a question that people ask all the time on the forums. And it's a state specific and it's a case specific thing. So I know you're not giving legal advice here. We're not lawyers and we don't play one on TV. But how are you structuring your partnerships? Are you doing LLCs, corporations, or how do you manage that side of things?
Well, I mean, I have my business is an LLC, but as far as structuring the deal, the financing with the private investor, when I started out, I had the philosophy, and the philosophy was basically told to me, and I've heard you guys say it, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So what the advice to me was, listen, you're new, you haven't really done that much. If you find someone who is willing to partner with you and you can give them 50% of the profit and they will put up all the money, then do it. So I created pretty quickly a large pool of investors who were willing to do just that. So what I have been doing for the last few years is pretty much 50-50 deals. However, I do have a few investors that will work on a rate of return. That's just what they're interested in. They want a rate of return, and that's fine. And I'm trying to kind of branch out. I got kind of spoiled for a while because I had a lot of investors and I had more money than I could use, but they were all 50-50 deals. So now what I'm trying to do is find other avenues and other investment means where, maybe it's a little bit more profitable on my end than just a 50-50 every time. But I still do a lot of 50-50 deals.
Can you explain what a rate of return is for folks who may not understand?
Yeah, sure. Like it would be someone who says, all right, I have $100,000, right? The deal is going to be, let's just say it's a little expensive for my area because I'm near the D town word. But I can get a house for 40, but let's just say I had to pay a crazy amount, like $70,000, and it was going to cost me $30,000 to rehab. And somebody says, I have $100,000 that I'll loan you, but I want a rate of return. I want 10% on my money, and basically you're paying them just simple interest, 10% every month until you pay them back. So if it takes you 6 months to renovate the house and another year to sell it, you're probably not going to make out better in that situation. But that's just what you decide on before it starts. So basically, it's a monthly payment, a simple interest monthly payment rate of return each month.
Got it. So in that 100,000 example, if it were a 10% rate of return, is that 10%? So I'm paying $10,000 month one, or am I paying $10,000 spread over the amount of time it takes?
Yeah, it would be spread over the amount of time it takes. So there's no guarantee that it's going to get to that 10,000. If you buy the house and sell it within 3 months, well, that's great. You're not going to end up paying as much as you would if you held onto it for a year. Basically.
Gotcha.
And do you put each house and each partnership into a separate LLC, or do you run it all under your business LLC?
I run it all under my business LLC, and basically what we do for our investors is we're signing a private mortgage, and the way I structure it to protect them is I give myself a time frame, or I basically commit to a time frame, and usually it's 6 months, just to be fair to everybody. So, but from the time I take their money on a loan for 6 months, I have 6 months to sell it. At the end of the 6 months, they're within their rights to foreclose on the house. They can take the house from me. If I take forever to sell it, if I just hold on to it, I say I'm going to borrow your money because there's no payments. Let's make that clear too. I make no payments. Okay. They pay for the cost of the house, the EMD, the rehab, everything. Everything comes out of that money. So it's basically we have a couple of different contracts. One of them is a mortgage, and then we have a joint operating agreement that we sign. Right. So each one we have a joint operating agreement, and then we have a loan for unsecured, which would be the rehab amount, right? The money we're going to use to fix it. So there's 3 documents, and then at the end of that 6 months, we have to pay them back in full plus 50% of the profit, or they can foreclose on the house.
Yeah, and that's I got to tell you, I mean, that's pretty ballsy of you to offer that out, and I think I think what that does is that makes you very attractive for private money investors. And I think for folks listening who are thinking of kind of getting into this and borrowing people's money, you said something that really struck me. And I think I've heard that from the vast majority of our guests who do take private money. And it's your job, your goal is to make your investors feel at ease. And I think I can't press upon it enough that that's probably the most important part of the entire thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if it's just the area I'm in or the people I'm dealing with. A lot of my investors are also fairly savvy when it comes to real estate investing. They don't go out and do it themselves, but they understand it. They're in the circle, so they sort of get it. And a lot of them want to know the first question, especially when I was new. So these contracts in my system was set up basically when I was new, and I'm not afraid of it because, like you said, I guess it's a little ballsy, but I've never had anyone foreclose on a house because I get it sold, and I'm aggressive about buying. I'm very, very aggressive and very, very into the rehab management too. I've gotten that down and I'm very comfortable with that. And I don't go over my timeline. I don't go over budget, and I get the houses sold because I'm very aggressive in that end of it. So for me to offer that 6 months or whatever, foreclosure clause, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I love the partnership thing. Again, like you said, you're giving away some of your profit, but I know that it's pretty much the same way I structure mine. Though I really like what you said about not having payments during the time when you're flipping. That's kind of a neat way to do it. You split the profit at the end 50-50, but you make no payments in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, there's just zero. We get all the money up front too. I mean, I don't get releases. I get they buy the house obviously, and then whatever we're going to use for rehab, I get that all at one time, and then I decide how to dole that out to the contractor. So, and so it's very convenient.
You're pretty much doing these with no money down. I mean, essentially, right? All these new.
I mean, I have none of my money into the deals at all. I've not put up any money into any deal since the first house I did.
That's awesome. So it can be done, people. It can be done. Why don't we move on a little bit to, I guess, a little bit more of the starting out stuff. We want to talk about when people first get going. So I'm wondering if somebody's listening to this show who has not done any real estate investing yet whatsoever, what is the first step that they should do? I mean, like, they don't even know what field they want to get into. They don't know, like, what should they do to get started?
I think the first thing they need to do is get educated. And it's a really slippery slope because of what I talked about. We talked about at length what I did. I spent too much time getting educated, but I think the bottom line is anytime you're going to get into something like this where you're going to be spending a large amount of money and maybe somebody else's money, you better know what you're talking about and you better know what you're doing. So I would say get on, not to plug, but over BiggerPockets is just a great place. It's a wealth of information, and you should get on there and start reading and figure out what excites you the most and start reading about that and really educate yourself. And then the next thing would be, like I said, find a mentor, someone who's willing to sit down and just give you some guidance. I mean, you guys both know, if someone came to you and said, I'm going to start investing in real estate. I'm going to do it. You can't stop me. And I'm not going to ask anyone for any help. I'm just going to go out and find a good deal, throw money at it, and I'm going to go for it. And that they would probably likely fail if they did that way. So if you could sit down with them and just spend 20 minutes, half an hour, you could probably save them so much time and so much money. I mean, a half an hour isn't enough, but even a half an hour, you would probably get them out of so many jams that they don't have to get into. So just finding somebody who knows what they're doing and talking to them and befriending them. Don't be a pain in the butt. Be friendly, be personable, try to be charming. Don't be fake, and don't ask for everything under the sun. Just listen. Just ask them some questions and let them talk to you.
And I think, I'm gonna put out a plea from the flip side here. There's so many of us who listen to the show and who are out there. So many people who are doing well. I'm gonna challenge you to if you're one of those folks to, step out of your comfort zone and reach out and find somebody who's new and who doesn't have the chops yet, and help them out, because you'll actually be amazed. You'll probably learn something yourself from helping them, and we all started from somewhere. Everybody started at the very beginning, and everybody's made mistakes, and if you can help one person out, I mean, we could all better the community that way.
Yep, yeah. I totally agree. I think a lot of people are willing to do that, but you're right. I mean, we get so caught up in what we're doing, we don't think to necessarily stop and help someone. But, if someone just comes up to you and says, hey, I really want to get into this and I don't really know what I'm doing, just give them a minute of your time.
Well, and I think part of that comes from this mindset, which is a false mindset. I think it's a false mindset of the competition. I'm helping my competition. And, in some ways you are, but in the end, especially in real estate, your competitors are going to be your deal flow. In many, many cases, if you do it right, you're gonna work with these guys. So, I think it's a mindset thing.
Yep, I agree. And a lot of people do look at it as competition. I really don't either. Even in my local market, I swear I've gotten more back from helping people than I've lost, or it's never negatively affected me. I've never had an issue with that. So you help people, and they want to help you back, and you end up like you said, deal flow. Perfect example. That's the kind of thing that happens.
So do you think then that flipping is a good ideal to get into when you're first getting started because that's what you did, or would you advise somebody to start somewhere else?
It's a good question. I think you can really screw up worse when you flip houses right off the bat. The problem with wholesaling when you start off, and I've listened, like I said, I've listened to a ton of people that you guys have talked to, and I've heard vastly different opinions on this. But you talked to someone named Sharon Vornholt, and she said something that I thought made a lot of sense. When it comes to wholesaling, you have to know how to buy right. You have to know how to renovate, or at least you need to know the cost of what it costs to renovate a house. And then you have to have someone to sell the house to. You have to know what it's going to sell for at the end of the deal. You have to have so much already under your belt in terms of knowledge. I think it's very tough to start off wholesaling personally. If you don't have the connections, you don't have people who want to buy, you don't have people who want to sell, and you don't know how to renovate a house and what it costs, I just don't see how you can really do it. I know you've had people on who said they've done it that way and that's how they started, and I believe it. It seems hard for me. Yeah. I do think that flipping houses is a good way to start, honestly, especially if you just get a little help from someone who's done it before. Now, it might be easy in my market to say that because the amount of money we're talking is not astronomical. So for me, that was a good way to start. If I lived in Southern California, I don't know, maybe that wouldn't have been a good way to go. Maybe it would have been cost prohibitive. I wouldn't have been able to do it. But in my area, fix and flip is probably a great way to start.
Well, and that is a really good point right there. It's not going to be the same for you as it is for Josh. Where Josh's neighborhood, the houses are going for $1 million or $500,000, and you're 40. So in a different area, different methods work for different personalities. So it's kind of a blending of those three things to try to figure out how you should get started.
Yeah, and I enjoy the managing of the contractor, as dumb as that sounds. I like managing the I don't know if I enjoy managing the contractor, but I enjoy managing that process. I like the timeline thing, and I like having a budget and a timeline and seeing how close to that or how much better I can do than that. I enjoy it. I kind of thrive off of that.
See, I don't like
for
that
me. It
at
works.
All. I'm the opposite. I don't like the managing the property, but I love finding the deals and managing the tenants. I don't mind that part of things as much. So it just different personalities. I love that.
Yep.
So wrapping up here before we kind of get to our final rounds, what is your plan for the future? Do you plan on just flipping continually? You have one buy and hold. Do you plan on doing more of that? Where do you see yourself in the next few years?
Yeah, ironically, I do plan on doing a lot more buy and hold next year. I do flips now, like I said. I'm not getting any younger, and I'm starting to realize that if I ever want to, be able to retire or have some time to myself where I'm not working all the time, the only way to really do that, in my opinion, or the best way to do it, is with buy and hold real estate. So, flipping is great, but I've got to be there every day, right? I've got to be on top of it, and it's a full-time job. I am going to do a lot more buy and hold in 2014. That's my plan. So I'm just going to be a little smarter about it. Tenant screening and that kind of thing that I didn't do with the house that I currently have. I'm going to be a little bit more methodical and systematic about it. And that's my goal for next year, is to do a lot more buy and hold.
Nice. And Brandon wrote a really great article on tenant screening that's pretty thorough. I don't know if you've read it already, but we'll link to it in the show notes, and it's fabulous.
Great. That's something I have to sharpen. That's a skill that I don't have that I need to sharpen.
Yeah, cool. Right on. Well, cool. Oh, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, we do have a short link for that. It's just biggerpockets.com/tenant screening. We'll actually go right there. So,
okay, awesome.
Anybody cares.
Nice.
All right. Well, why don't we get to the...
It's time for the fire round.
Those sound effects are fabulous, guys.
Nice.
It's like George Lucas is working on this show.
This is how we do it, man.
Yes.
Gotta raise the bar, right?
Yeah, there you go. All right, these questions all come from the Bigger Pockets forums. These are questions that real people are asking, and we want to know your advice. So we're going to fire them at you. You can fire them right back. Number one, you hire a bad contractor who doesn't do the work right for whatever reason. You fire him, and now he's threatening to file a mechanics lien. What do you do?
Perfect.
I know it's a tough one to start with.
Is this a question that I put up there? Did you guys look for my questions? Well, hopefully people are listening to the show and they're going to have people sign a release of lien before they even get started. That's key. The way you get around legal problems in real estate, in my opinion, or the way you avoid a lot of problems in real estate is with paperwork, contracts. People sign things up front. You have agreements that you can present. Other than that, I would say you should never pay your contractors with cash. It's very difficult to prove that you paid them when you pay them with cash. So, use business checks or at least a check of some kind that's traceable. And I would say have them sign off on everything you're paying them for. I mean, don't hand money to anybody that isn't in the form of a check and that they're not signing something that's stipulating what it is they're taking the money for, what's been done, what are you paying for, that kind of thing.
Come on, Mike. I'll give you, I'll charge you 75% of my rate if you pay me in cash.
Yeah. Nah, that's all right. I'll pay the full rate. I've had that too, where it's it'll cost you less if you use cash.
Yeah.
Not really. Not in my experience. Yep. It costs me more.
There you go. All right. Next question. Is it worth it to texture walls on a flip?
Texture walls. Funny. I had a good experience with that too. I don't texture walls on a flip. And I didn't even know that texturing walls was desirable until one of my contractors in the past did it without asking me. I saw it. I saw that he did it. And honestly, I thought he did something that made it look cheap. And I went ballistic. I blew a gasket. And then I left the site and I turned to I called one of my friends that was in real estate. And he had been flipping houses for a long time. He really knew his stuff. He was somebody he was sort of a mentor to me. And I said, can you believe what this guy did? He textured these walls. It looks like, bleep. And I'm so pissed off. I'm going to fire him. I was just so beside myself that he did this house this way. And he's like, dude, calm down. People love that. I pay extra for that. I was like, really? So I went back and said, you know what? I thought about it. I'm going to let it go. I'm not mad anymore. Don't worry. Just don't do it without asking me. And so it was funny, but I don't do it to answer your questions. But I hear people like it.
No, yeah, definitely. I like it. I need to actually texture my bedroom one of these days. So
just texture your face and get rid of that beard of yours.
I did shave. No shave November is over. Look at this. It's
Thank
shorter.
God. Oh my God. I had to talk to this guy. There were like owls coming out of his face.
They gotta live somewhere. All right, next question. Should a house flipper get their real estate license?
I don't have my real estate license, so it would be kind of hard for me to say that they should. I don't think you need to. I don't think it's all that important personally. If you want direct access to the MLS, if that's something that really excites you, then you probably should. I don't think it's a good use of my time to be trolling the MLS and that kind of thing. I have a realtor that I love. He does a great job for me. He's very timely. He shoots properties at me. He'll do anything I need him to do that I can't do as a non-realtor. So yeah, I don't think it's important personally, but I'm sure a lot of people are yelling right now at the
Nah, listen.
You're wasting so much money.
I don't think it's a waste. I have a very good friend who flips houses in my area. He went and got his real estate license. He thought it was a good idea for him. I just never felt like I needed to.
Gotcha.
Good.
All right. Great. Well, this question's perfect for you. What do you look for in a neighborhood? Detroit. Sorry, I had an itch.
I look for a declining economy and entire street blocks that I can buy for what's in my pocket. What's important to me is that every house in the area that I'm in was built in the same time frames, the same era, very similar houses. So I'm buying a lot of 3-1s with a basement, a garage, brick ranch, and there's so many houses like that in the areas that I buy houses that there's a very predictable after repair value. And that's really important to me. I don't want to be in an area where every house is unique and it's on a weird road and it's sort of out in the country. Like, it's very hard to predict the prices of those houses, what they're going to sell for. I like to be in very predictable neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods that I work in are very densely populated, very run-of-the-mill 1,000 square foot ranch houses. And I just know with very little research exactly what it's going to sell for. So it kind of speeds up the process of sifting and sorting through houses.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Next question. Josh, you want to take it?
That was my question.
Was it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No problem. How's your nap? You wake up?
Yeah, I was petting my cat. All right.
What?
My cat. It's keeping me warm. My feet. All right. Next question. What are your? All right. Next question. I'm gonna get through this.
You realize that 16,000 people or 17 or whatever the heck we're at these days now know that you're sitting here petting your.
Yeah. Whatever.
Okay.
All right. Next question. What are your thoughts? All right. Next question. What is your opinion about hard money lenders and flipping houses?
I have never used a hard money lender to flip a house. I think they're fine. I think there's a place for them. The deal with hard money lenders for me is usually you're making payments while you're flipping the house, and the amount of money that you're gonna have to pay them at the end of the deal is probably going to be more than what it would be if you just partnered with somebody and split the profits. In my estimation, so I just and there's paperwork involved there too. Like it's almost like you're going to a bank but getting a worse deal. So I don't usually go to hard money lenders for that reason. If I can't move extremely quick, like I can with a private lender, then I'm just going to go ahead and get a mortgage and pay a way low, interest rate, a lot less of an interest rate, and not have all the points and things. So to me, it's like it's between private money and a bank, mortgage, but it's like the worst of both worlds. It's not fast and it costs you a lot.
There you go. Well, if you are looking for hard money lenders, we have a directory of hundreds of them on BiggerPockets at biggerpockets.com/hard money lenders for anybody listening. And
I just crapped all over them too. Sorry about that.
That's it's all good, man. I mean, listen, different strokes for different folks.
Yep, exactly.
You want to vet anybody, whether it's private, hard money, or even traditional, and see what works best for your situation. So just because I think Detroit sucks doesn't mean that it does.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait to hear your next show when you talk nicely about Detroit. I think you've turned over a new leaf. I think I got that article you sent, by the way. I saw that you sent it during the show. I got that, and I'm gonna post that on BiggerPockets. I'm gonna get that out there.
You should.
And I want to hear the change of heart.
I have a change of heart. I mean, I think that's really positive. Like I said, there's a lot of good things happening, but stop interrupting me in my fire round, okay? Jeez. All right, fire round. Final question. Do you use a smartphone to help you run your business? And if so, how?
Oh, man, I'm all about the smartphone. Yeah, actually, I do. Well, obviously, I'm using it for texting and emailing like everybody else, but that's a lot of it. There's a lot of emailing that goes on in real estate investing. So tons of emailing. I have created some just fairly simple spreadsheets that help me work through some of the numbers when I'm in a house that I'm looking at. And I basically create them in Google Docs, and I open them through Google Docs app and can plug in some numbers real quick to help me just sort of sort through some things. So yeah, I use my smartphone for that. Every a little bit. I don't use it a ton, but I get on Zillow once in a while and use that just to do some double checking on certain things and see what's out there. But yeah, I use my smartphone for almost everything, to answer your question. But specifically for the business, I have created some spreadsheets that I use when I'm going through and evaluating the flip and what I'm going to spend.
Right on. Cool. All right. Well, with that said, it's time to wrap this show up. Although I am so saddened by it, but
why? Nice to hear. I'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Speaking of sure, we're gonna bust out the
famous four.
Our famous four. These questions we ask everyone, as you know. So, question number 1: what is your favorite real estate book?
I'm gonna bum Josh out. I know he gets so bummed by a lot of the answers.
I really don't get bummed. You guys, I sound bummed. Just because I sound like I haven't gotten through puberty doesn't mean I'm bummed.
I would say, probably the one that had the biggest influence on me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I know that's a little bit of a cliche. It's a bummer. You guys got to figure out a way to ask this where you say, what was your favorite book?
Other
but
than
you can't say. Yeah, exactly. Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'll throw this one out there too. This will be a little bit of a curveball that most people will probably snicker, but it did. I don't know if it's a business book or more of a real estate book or a little both or maybe neither, but The Art of the Deal. I liked it. It was a book that was motivating to me, and I thought it was really cool, and it just sort of got me, just like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, it just sort of got me thinking along, that line of real estate investing. Obviously, I'm not buying houses or apartments in Manhattan and flipping buildings there, but it was a book that I liked. It had an influence on me. So
that's Donald Trump, right?
That is Donald
Donald
Trump.
Trump, Art of the
Yeah.
Deal. Yeah,
I read that
Yep.
a long time ago. I don't remember much of it. but
right. It's an old book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually
No.
really enjoy reading. Like, I read one of Donald Trump's newer books. Most like entertaining read I've ever had. Like, it was just hilarious because
Well,
Yeah.
he's probably one of the greatest self-promoters in the history
Yeah.
of histories. I mean, he really is, you know, and that's, at least I'd argue, his, you know, a lot of his business today is certainly in that promotion, the branding and the promotion versus the real estate, but certainly obviously he's doing real estate. So that's a good real estate book, Art of the Deal. I actually really enjoyed it as well. What about favorite business book that's not Art of the Deal, not the any of the banned book list for Josh Jordan?
I like the four. No, I'm just kidding. I won't go there.
The 3-hour work week.
Exactly. Yeah. Are you still on page 27, by the way? That's the last I heard.
I am.
All right. That's fair. I like a book called The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. That was a cool book. I like that. It had a lot of influence on me. It was kind of eye-opening, some of the concepts in there that I hadn't really thought about. I also do like to read some Dan Kennedy stuff. I don't know if you guys read him at all, but I have a book called Wealth Attraction for Entrepreneurs. It's just one that I read recently of his that I really liked. So just a cool guy, motivating guy. You know, he has a lot of books out there. The No BS series basically is what he writes. So yeah, I read some of his stuff.
Right on. Very cool. And what about hobbies? Do you do anything for fun? I don't know, like skateboarding through downtown Detroit at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's a game we call kick someone out of the car in Detroit and see how long they last. No, I'm kidding. For hobbies, you know what? Actually, I don't know if it's a hobby. It's something I've been involved in my whole life. But I'm actually a 4th-degree black belt, and I used to run a full-time martial arts school, and I'm still involved there. And there's a school with my name on it still that I don't necessarily run, but it bears my name, and I go there and help with testing and some promotional stuff there.
Nice.
Okay, fight Joel Owens.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, Joel's like a 3rd-degree black belt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got to get you two actually kicking each other's butts, and then Brandon Turner over here, my fabulous
I'll take you
co-host,
both on.
who likes to pick fights with people twice his size or more skillful than him. That would be fun.
I would have to hopefully be more skillful because I'm not twice his size. I guarantee you that. And
he's,
I'm also
he's like 8
kidding.
feet tall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I
I'm
fight
definitely
16-foot tall people. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting old. I can't do that anymore.
Nice.
All right, final question of the famous four. What do you believe sets apart the successful investors from those who never really start?
I think the thing that sets them apart is they take action, and then they keep taking action. To me, that's the beginning and the end of what it takes to be successful. You don't have to be incredibly smart. You don't have to be, born into money or anything like that. But you have to take the first step, which is scary as hell, and then you have to keep doing it, even if things don't go perfectly the first time. So, action and then consistent action. That's it for me.
Good.
Awesome.
Some tweetable topics in there.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Awesome. Well, listen, Mike, it's been enjoyable. I think I think this is a historic episode. I think lots of people are gonna stop tuning into Bigger Pockets here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, how many people have we alienated so far?
Well, there's only like 16 people who live in Detroit, so it's probably not that many.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, I'm still buying you that $5,000 house, and you have to come and live in it.
Yes.
That would be a serious challenge. Can Josh survive a week in downtown?
Exactly. Downtown, I'm going to give you a bottle of water and a pocket knife and see what you do.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. Lots of really, really good tips and feedback, and your story is fascinating. And as our, everybody's got their own unique story, and it's so cool to just see how we all kind of make our way through this this world. How can people find out more information about you? Where can they reach out to you at?
They can find me at, I have a website called Just Start Real Estate. They can go there and check me out. They can email me at mike@juststartrealestate.com. And that'd be a good way to get a hold of me.
And you also have a podcast, yeah?
I do have a podcast, ironically called Just Start Real Estate. And basically just, it's for people who are just starting out, really. I'm trying to give advice to people like you talked about the challenge, right? Just trying to find people and talk to people who really haven't done much of anything or even nothing and answer some of those questions that keep people, make them too afraid to even get out there and get started. So
there you go. Well, awesome. Listen, thanks so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. I had fun, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
All right, everybody. That was Mike Simmons. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. There was a lot of really, really, really good stuff in there, and we definitely appreciate Mike taking the time for being here with us. As we've said a couple times, if you've got questions for him, check them out on the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show49. Otherwise, definitely make sure to connect with us over on the various major social networks: Facebook, Twitter, G+, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Now we're trying to share some cool stuff over there as well. And we are sharing and engaging over on these networks with things that we're not doing on BiggerPockets. So definitely make sure to follow us and connect with us on those various places. Otherwise, of course, you want to also connect with us on BiggerPockets at BiggerPockets.com in case you missed it. And you should do that. And why should you do that, Brandon?
I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah, why do we pay this guy? You should connect with us on BiggerPockets because you're going to get a whole lot of value out of it, and you're going to meet guys like
that was it,
Mike, and you're going to learn a thing or two, and you're going to build your network, and we definitely encourage it. So if you're not interacting, if you're not connecting, or even if you have a profile and you don't do anything with it, just take some action and start connecting. So that's it. I enjoyed it. What do you think, Brandon? Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas. Let's wrap it up. Don't shoot your eye out.
Do it. Wrap it up.
All right.
Thanks. Dog dare you, my friend.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast.
This is Josh Dorkin signing off.
Dang it.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.